So yes, very quickly, my name's Tamara. I'm one of the Regional Development Managers at the University of Tasmania. I've been working at UTAS for about 7 years now in the Global Division, and I'm also a long-term Tasmanian, having been born here. Now, I understand today I'm speaking to a number of counsellors from both onshore and offshore, from a number of different regions. Now, I'm generally responsible for the onshore market, as well as Vietnam, the Philippines, and also I do support a little bit with Europe, but I do have some experience in some of the other markets as well. So there will be an opportunity to answer your questions at the end of the session, but there could be potentially some questions that I don't know the answer to, but if I don't, I will endeavour to actually, take a note of those questions and pass that information back on to Yes to let you know. Now, I won't go into this generic information, too much, but just for those that might not be as familiar with our university, just to make it clear, we are the 4th oldest university in Australia, and we are the only university in the state of Tasmania. Now, that is really important, that we are the only university in the state, because that means as a result we have very strong relationships with the Tasmanian government, as well as local industry and the wider community, which means we are able to find really special opportunities for our students. So whether that is a business student doing a corporate internship, or one of our health students needing to do their placement in order to meet the requirements, of the course and also the registration body. But it also means we obviously, having that strong relationship with the state government means they're very supportive of our growth, and is also one of the reasons where it's been obviously easy for us to look at expanding our university and building brand new infrastructure for our students, because we have that support. Now, we have a campus in Hobart, the capital city, and that's where I'm currently based, but actually at the moment I'm working from home still. Also, we have a campus in Launceston in northern Tasmania, which is about 2.5 hours away. And we also do have campus in Sydney, but that is only for nursing for international students as well. For those that aren't aware, we are very strong in the research space. So in the ARU rankings, we're in the top 300. In the Times Higher Education rankings, we are in the top 50 in the Asia Pacific region, and very strong in the Australian Government's Excellence in Research Awards rankings as well. But I find that the individual discipline rankings are more important. So to give you an example, in the CWUR rankings, we're actually in the top 4 in the world for marine and freshwater biology, or in the top 7 for oceanography and fishery science. So I think that's more important depending on what the student is interested in. But today I don't want to go into the rankings too much. We all hear a lot about that. I'm really more keen to talk to you about different key updates and the scholarships. Now, for those that are not aware, we do have a huge number of scholarships, of courses available, because again, we are the only university in the state of Tasmania. So we do have a College of Arts, Law and Education, where you can study anything from the humanities, social sciences area to the fine arts, as well as education and law. We also obviously have a health and medicine college, where you can study things like lab medicine, pharmacy, MBBS, which I'll talk a little bit more around later, nursing, exercise science. We also have a business school as well, where you can study anything from economics to entrepreneurship, to an MBA, quite a number of different specialisations you can do. Our College of Science and Engineering is like a super college, because also within that college we have our Institute of Marine and Antarctic Studies. We are still the only university in the world where you can actually do a combined degree in marine and Antarctic science. We also have our Australian Maritime College. I would hope that everyone would be aware of our Australian Maritime College, but it is essentially Australia's only specialist maritime institute. And that is based in our Launceston campus. And that teaches anything from short courses for industry right up to PhD level in areas such as seafaring, maritime or marine engineering, so think naval architecture, the design of submarines or naval frigates, to also things like logistics, so global logistics. A number of universities actually teach logistics now, but no other university in Australia has the connections with industry that we do. So I think that's one of the reasons why our logistics program is quite special. Just to give you an example, each year the Australian Maritime College actually will have a 2-day career fair for their students, where we'll actually get companies, Department of Defence, to actually come down and speak to upcoming graduates about job opportunities, and also just to give, you know, different talks to our students. And so that will be from both the logistics area and also the engineering space. So that just, you know, obviously gives you a little bit of an insight, and then also things like architecture and ICT, which we all know is very popular. So it's quite an expansive range of programs, ranging from foundation and early course right up to PhD. Now, for semester 2, it's important to note that we are still very much in that online mode of study for Sem 2 due to COVID. So while there is plans to slowly open up campus around the middle of July this year, it will only be bringing in small groups of students for particular activities. You know, so for example, those students that are studying medicine, we'd be bringing them in for certain, you know, practicals, you know, in the labs, but that'd only be small groups, and we'd be adhering to social distancing. So at the moment, we're still not going to be looking at doing those large scale lectures, you know, unless there's strong social distancing in place where we can meet all the different government, you know, regulations. So for that reason, in semester 2, our programs will be available, you know, with online attendance, but with the eventual possibility, you know, of moving to on-campus in semester 1 next year, unless, you know, borders open, you know, earlier. We're still very hopeful that the borders domestically will open up in late July and will allow onshore students to easily move over to Tasmania and not have to go into quarantine. But that is obviously something that will be, I guess, up to the Tasmanian government to make that decision. We're obviously looking very carefully at what's happening in Victoria at the moment, because that is obviously a little bit of a concern. Would be obviously, I think the Tasmanian government's been a little bit cautious because of what's happening in Victoria. But at the moment, you know, people can still come to Tasmania, but that are actually already in Australia. But the reality is they would have to go into the government quarantine for 14 days. And the Tasmanian government does have a really good website around COVID-19, and it'll actually document the process around, you know, mandatory quarantine and what's included, what's, you know, free, because it's actually not something they're charging people for. it does include the accommodation and, basic, meals. But what I might do after this session is actually send through to Mike the website that actually details, more information about that quarantine process. But it very much is a student's individual choice. If they do want to move from, say, Brisbane or Sydney or Melbourne, for example, to Tasmania and be subject to that quarantine. But we are hopeful by the end of, July that might not be needed anymore for those students already living, onshore. We're still really doing that wait and see aspect. But with semester 2 courses, you can actually find on our website, and I have the link here, the link of actually our online course guide that actually details the courses that will be available in semester 2. More courses will probably be added over the coming couple of days as well. But classes will commence on Monday, the 13th of July. Orientation week is happening next week, but that will be all virtual, so quite different. The important thing to note though is while classes do commence on the 13th of July, we will actually be accepting late arrivals. But that late arrival, we say late arrivals, but really considering the virtual element, this semester will be more like late virtual enrolments. So it really does depend on the course. So for example, all business courses will allow late enrolment up until 2 weeks after Monday, the 13th of July. Whereas, some particular courses, I'll use the example of the Master of Laboratory Medicine, they would never generally accept late enrolment because of the structure of that course, whereas business allow that 2 weeks. At the moment, our ICT programs only allow 1 week late enrolment, but there is potential, and we should get confirmation in a couple of days, that they might even extend that a little bit more because of the fact that a lot of these courses will be obviously online for semester 2. So if you have any doubts about whether a course will allow late enrolment or not, just go through, obviously, yes, and they will, speak to somebody within my team and get that clarification. But we do have some flexibility there around late enrolment. Now, just very quickly, I won't go into the details around, where Tasmania is and how accessible that is from the mainland in today's session, but just what I wanted to let you all know was that the Tasmanian government is still very supportive of international students. And that's been demonstrated by the fact that, they've gone out and publicly, told students, current students and future students that, if later down the track they apply for state nomination, but they had to start their course online, that they will be flexible around that, and it won't disadvantage their state nomination application. But obviously I'm not a migration agent, so I can't go into it in detail. But what I'd recommend, if you're interested, around the state government's position around that, just to go to the Migration Tasmania, website, and they do have a statement around that. Because the state government very much still is wanting to see our population grow in Tasmania. So we've only got around 520,000 people in the state, and they're still wanting to get it to around 650,000 by 2050. So that objective hasn't changed because of COVID-19. That's still very important to the state government. Which means, they are very supportive of international students coming to study in Tasmania. Now, as we are all aware, COVID-19 has impacted everyone across the globe in some way or another. Even for myself, I've personally had friends or family that, had to be stood down, from their job because they were working in the tourism industry. but now they're, luckily starting to get back into it, which is great. So it has affected everyone, and obviously we're all very aware that it has affected the international education sector very severely. And obviously, like all other universities, our universities, had the first focus of really trying to support current students. And just to give you, I guess, a little bit of a snapshot of some of the things that we have done, to support our international students and even our domestic students during this time, is we came up with a range of different support through financial support. So like say since March this year, we actually helped over 3,000 students with grants to cover living costs and study resources. We distributed over 700,000 Australian dollars in vouchers to students, and they were majority international students. And then also we offered an additional $1.2 million worth of travel hardship grants to overseas students unable to actually return safely to their families back home. So we have done a lot of that in that space financially. Even our own staff have been donating through a special support appeal. Money from their own salary that's going directly towards international students. So there has been financial support there. There has also been a lot of academic support. So through the students not being able, maybe it took a bit of an adjustment to online studies. So in semester 1, and it will be the same for semester 2, if a student doesn't, pass that unit, it won't be a recorded pass, subject to, no academic misconduct, for example. So just to recognise that, it can be a little bit of an adjustment, to being 100% online, particularly for international students. Again, there's been a lot of health and wellbeing type support. So we established a special COVID support team that has been there to, support students with all their different questions. All of our support staff, whether it be a counsellor or international student advisor, have moved to that, online, aspect to make sure that students were still getting access to essential services. And even with accommodation, when we first had students, coming before the borders were closed, we were actually, supporting students, while they were in, quarantine as well. But you can actually find out more information about all the support that we provide students in that website listed below. It is quite comprehensive, particularly if you have questions around, the academic aspect of it too. In terms of some of the other support that we have undertaken, this school's recommendation program only applies to onshore Year 12 students, so international students studying Year 12 in Australia. So to recognise the fact that this is going to be a difficult year for any students studying Year 12 in Australia, in terms of, their ATAR, we've, similar to, I think, some of the other universities that have sort of done this, we're actually, offering students places in programs, based on, more than just their ATAR. So, if their, school teacher, recommends that they would be okay within, say, our Bachelor of Science, we will, make them an offer, based on that recommendation, of the school teacher. They'd still have to adhere to the different English requirements, but would be able to issue that letter of offer for them. That would be with the exception, though, of quota programs like medicine and nursing. So they obviously are more competitive type, courses. So medicine students still do need to do the ISAT test, for example. And with some courses such as nursing, education and social work, again, IELTS is compulsory even for students that have been doing year 12 in Australia. That's really important. But again, you can find out some more information about the school's recommendation program online here. Just in terms of some other key updates, so we've made the decision to freeze tuition for 2021 at the 2020 rates. So if you see any letters of offer and they look like the rates are different, they're a little bit higher than 2020, that will be rectified in due course. So just confirming we will not be increasing our fees next year. Also very briefly, we will no longer be offering our Master of Entrepreneurship and Innovation within our business college, but you can still do specialisations in this area in a number of our courses, such as, the MBA or the Master of Marketing Management, going forward. Also, another change is that we can no longer do English packages into our Bachelor of Nursing. So it's my understanding that all universities across Australia will be in the same position. These are changes that have been made due to the external body that has that oversight on nursing registration in Australia. So all applicants that apply for our Bachelor of Nursing will have to do a recognised English test, such as the IELTS, and get that 7 with no band less than 7, unless they are, English-speaking citizens of countries such as the UK, US, Canada. So that might disappoint some applicants, but it's understanding that's going to be, something across all Australian universities. And just on nursing, at the moment we are not making offers in our Bachelor of Nursing, but that will be changing shortly because we're just reviewing the way we assess that nursing program, because we only have limited spots for international students in nursing, and because it's so popular, we might be looking at a more selective approach for our nursing course, similar to what we do to medicine, but that's just been finalised at the moment. So if you've put in applications for the Bachelor of Nursing, and it's the same actually with the Bachelor of Laboratory Medicine, and you haven't seen any offers forthcoming, that is the reason why. It's not because your applicant has missed out necessarily, it's just because we're reviewing the actual entry requirements for those courses. Okay, now I just want to talk to you a little bit about our Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery to make more people aware of this course. So we have a very strong medical program at our university. We're one of the very few universities in Australia that still actually offers undergraduate medicine. So our medicine program is a 5-year program based in Hobart. We're very fortunate in the fact that our medical science precinct is actually directly opposite from Tasmania's major state hospital. So that allows really easy interaction for our academics and medical students when they're doing placements, and a lot of our obviously academics are also still practicing doctors. Now that program is quite popular, but saying that it's still possible to come across applicants that might have a strong chance of getting into this program. So we've actually pushing a lot more for diversity in this program. Historically, we've had a lot of students from a couple of nationalities like Singapore and Malaysia, but we're very much, wanting to make other nationalities aware of this program. So students will generally need the equivalent of an ATAR of 95 or above. Chemistry is a compulsory subject, and they do need to have obviously an IELTS of 7 with no band less than 7, unless there's, you know, some exceptions to that depending on the curriculum that they've studied, their citizenship, that type of thing. But for us, ISAT is also very important, the International Student Admissions Test. So we require students to have an overall percentile of 50 or above in both components. But in reality, to remain really competitive, ideally we're looking for students that have got an overall percentile of 70 or above. Now we have very strong connections with the Department of Health and Human Services and just the health sector in general. So when our students do their clinical rotations, particularly in years 4 and 5, that is very easy for us to do. In actual fact, 100% of our international graduates who elect to apply for their housemanship after graduation in Australia are successful. So getting an actual job after graduation from this course is not a problem at all. One of the other exciting things about our medicine program is that it includes a regional placement, which is actually compulsory. So our medical students actually get exposure in both like an urban city aspect, but then also in a more regional setting. So that is actually really quite a good thing to be able to get experience in both urban and regional settings, because not every, you know, medical graduate, you know, is always able to get, you know, a job, you know, in a big capital city after graduation. And some people actually like working in the regional setting as well, because it gives them a different type of experience. Now our medicine program does have rounds. Okay, the first round is actually closed and offers have gone out. But the second round won't be to the 3rd of September. So we are obviously looking for more, you know, strong quality applicants to be submitted for the next round in early September. If we get enough good quality applications before the 3rd of September, we might look at doing an earlier round. And also what we can do for good quality applicants is sometimes we can waive the application fee of $110 as well. I just need, you know, Yes Education to have that conversation with myself or one of the regional development managers. With our medicine program, we're actually excited to confirm that any medicine student next year that is looking to live in UTAS accommodation, that we can actually guarantee accommodation in our new CBD apartment complex that is due to be opened in November. And so that means they would actually only be a 5-minute walk away from the medical school or the Royal Hobart Hospital. And we will be looking to do some other special scholarships for our medicine students, but that will hopefully be announced over the coming weeks as well, as, you know, an additional incentive just to try and attract high quality medical students into our program. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about scholarships to make everyone aware of the different scholarships that we have available at UTAS. And I'm also very aware of the time. I've got 15 minutes before question and answers, I think. So for those that don't know, we do have what's called the Tasmanian International Scholarship. Now that is academic merit-based. We will automatically assess students on receipt of their application as long as we have their final results, whether it's their bachelor results or the year 12 results. If it's a student that is transferring, say they've completed 1 year, I don't know, of the Bachelor of Business at the University of Melbourne, we'll assess them for that scholarship based on that 1 year at the University of Melbourne. Or if it's a student that has, say, been studying at TAFE in Victoria and it's only a competency-based diploma, we would have to assess for that scholarship based on, say, their year 12 results as well. So students will be notified in their letter of offer, and if they're successful in getting that 25% scholarship will take the 25% off the initial deposit payment that they need to make. So it is for the duration of the course, subject to maintaining satisfactory grades. For a lot of our health courses, they do need to have a higher grade, usually a credit average from memory. But for other courses, they just need to be passing. So it actually works out to be quite well. So for example, a student doing a 4-year Bachelor of Engineering, if they got that scholarship, it's like getting 1 year's tuition for free. So there's no caps on this particular scholarship. Many universities, when they offer these types of scholarships, will have a cap, but we actually have no cap. So we will assess everybody. It's just not available for medicine students or students doing seafaring. Now this might be of interest for any people online that are working with ASEAN students. So still available in semester 2, we do have an ASEAN Science and Technology Undergraduate Merit Scholarship, which is actually 50% off the tuition for the duration of the course. So students just need to have the equivalent of an ATAR of 90. And it is for the majority of bachelor programs within our College of Sciences and Engineering that have a semester 2 intake. You know, it could be such as the Bachelor of Science, the Bachelor of Agricultural Science, Bachelor of ICT. So we'll assess them automatically for that. Now, as a result of COVID, we'll actually allow students to retain that scholarship if they have to defer to semester 1, 2021. Also, if students don't get this 50% scholarship, they will still be assessed for the 25% scholarship. And if they don't get that, at the very, very bare minimum, we also have a 10% ASEAN Careers in Science and Technology Award. So there's basically 3 categories of scholarships and awards for students from the ASEAN area. And so it doesn't matter if they're onshore or offshore, as long as they're a citizen, you know, within the ASEAN region. We also do have a South Asia short-term living allowance bursary for semester 2. Now this is obviously at the moment only for onshore students because of the reality with the borders, the international borders being closed. We're not going to have students from South Asia needing a relocation allowance to support their living because they can't get to Australia at the moment. So this bursary is only for students that weren't eligible for the 25% scholarship and who are looking to do our MBA in Maritime and Logistics Management, or our Master of Logistics Management Advanced, or our postgraduate engineering programs. And they have to be citizens of these countries listed here. Essentially, one of the reasons we're doing this is we're trying to encourage some diversity in these particular courses where we feel we're not really getting our market share, I guess, to be honest with you. So if you are an agent that focuses on any students from these countries that is currently in Australia, would be really excited to get applications for these programs. That amount of $5,200 would be paid in instalments throughout semester 2. So it wouldn't be paid in one bulk payment. It would be done in a staggered approach to ensure students can have good financial management and not spend it all at once. We also do have a offer for our Master of Information Technology and Systems for semester 2, but that is only for those applying for our Launceston campus. So that would be for obviously students that when they eventually can come to Tasmania would be looking to live in our Launceston campus. The picture here on the screen actually is of Launceston. So Launceston is a smaller city compared to Hobart. It's just under 100,000 people. But it's still a beautiful little city, lots of gorgeous architecture, very close to some amazing, you know, national parks and beaches and beautiful, you know, wineries. And it's a good place to, you know, continue to improve your English. But this basically, anybody that applies in semester 2 to study MITS in the Launceston campus will get $2,500 off their tuition for the duration of the two-year course, as well. And at the moment, we still do, and again, this is for students that don't have the TIS, but we also have a bursary available for the Master of Pharmaceutical Science as well in semester 2. So again, for those that don't get that 25% scholarship, they can get a $4,000 bursary to support them. So they're essentially the key scholarships and bursaries we have at the moment. I was today going to talk to you a little bit about our Tasmanian Institute of Agriculture and give you a little bit more information about those programs, but I'm just very aware of the time because I think it would take a lot longer to speak about agriculture than 5 minutes. So perhaps it's a good time to actually ask if people have questions. If you agree, Mike, if you're there.
Yeah, I'm here. If it's only 5 minutes, I think you still can go through this program.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
it's a quite unique program provided by UTAS.
Okay, sure. All right. Well, I guess for those that don't know, within our university, we have what's called the Tasmanian Institute of Agriculture. And it's basically a special research institute that is funded by the Tasmanian government, private industry, as well as the university. So we're quite unique in the fact that the actual government and industry get us to do research on agriculture on their behalf. And I believe no other state in Australia does that, where they sort of outsource the research to an actual university. So we do all of that on behalf of those industries. But then also, as well as that research, we also offer a number of courses at coursework level. So I guess one of the interesting things to point out is, particularly in some nationalities, you know, people think that agriculture is all just about dirt and tractors, but in actual fact, it's quite a multidisciplinary field that, you know, encompasses a lot of facets of agricultural production, with a view of, you know, the productivity and sustainability of contemporary agricultural practices. So you can see in this picture here, you know, our ag students have been learning how virtual technology is shaping extension in agriculture. So, you know, through virtual reality, they're, you know, even watching, you know, cattle being handled, wheat harvesting, and ooze lambing, all from the comfort of their beanbag. That's what the young girl there in the middle is. But, you know, our agricultural graduates, you know, even get jobs in things like banks. So it's not all about, you know, getting your hands dirty. You know, we are also ranked in the top 50 in the world in the ARU rankings for agricultural science. So we have some really top academics, you know, in this space, because we have to remember in Tasmania, agriculture is one of our biggest industries. So it's very important for our economy. Our bachelor students that study agricultural science all get jobs at the end. And we are noticing an increase in popularity for international students wanting to do a bachelor, particularly from Southeast Asia and also Sri Lanka and Nepal. With the interest has grown a little bit. occasionally get one or two Chinese students as well, but definitely I have noticed an increase from Southeast Asia, from Vietnam to even the Philippines. We've always, got students from Singapore and Malaysia, but sort of not starting to notice that increase in other nationalities. But our agricultural science degrees, include things like, production and food safety as well, as the science, the actual science aspect of it, even that the marketing can be covered as well. So we do have really strong facilities, so I won't go through them all now, but we do even have our own agricultural farms that we own, where students can go and do, practicals and research, on those facilities. We're the only Australian university to receive above world standing rating in the Excellent Research for Australia for both agriculture, land, farm management and horticultural production. We're above national average in teaching quality under student support and graduate satisfaction. And we do have those real strong academics. So the picture here is actually of Professor Shabala, who is actually named the best researcher in the world in the field of botany. And he's quite passionate about food security and protecting plants from drought, flooding and salinity. Why that's important, because very much at our university, the researchers also often teach into the coursework programs. And yes, Mike, you've made a very good point around the fact that, agricultural scientists, are on, different lists as well. So bachelor level, that's where often, students will go if they're wanting to get jobs. But then we do obviously get students that do the masters as well. Quite often the students that come to us, particularly the international students, to do our master programs will be looking to do research. They're looking to do, a pathway to PhD as well. But you can see here, just that gives you a little bit of an example of the career opportunities within agricultural science. So this was just taken from a website called PayScale, but you can kind of get this, obviously this idea, soil scientist, starts off with just under Australian 70,000 on average. But then, the median salary can go past $120,000 a year. Obviously that would be for a senior soil scientist. It's got a number of years behind their, their belt. Viticulturalist, Tasmania has got, a really strong wine industry, as does South Australia. But, so it can lead to actually work, in viticulture, agronomists, but again, like in banks. So we've had students go on to get jobs in places like Rabobank as well. So it's not just working, in the field, and you can get jobs in both the government and private sectors. But agriculture is going to be only get bigger and bigger across the globe, because the reality is we've got, overpopulation in this globe, and we have that issue of how we feed all of these people. And agricultural scientists play a huge part in that. But even this, I did this last year, but this does give you an example, of some of the salaries that people that've got, that agricultural background can get, in Australia after they've got some experience behind them. So here there was, like last year, AgriLabour Australia was looking for a post-harvest operation manager, and it was between $100,000 to $130,000 per annum, plus super and a house. And obviously there's some, examples here from the mainland as well. So there is a lot of misconceptions about agriculture, but that just demonstrates to you a little bit about the fact that you can get good salaries. So these will quickly give you some ideas of the things that you can study within the Bachelor of Ag Science. That picture here we have here of that good-looking young man and lady. They're actually brother and sister. So Henry there was actually a Bachelor of Agricultural Science alumni. He manages Tasmanian truffles with his family. And he's actually also appeared on My Kitchen Rules for those that are into those type of foodie shows. And this picture is actually taken of their truffle stall at Salamanca Market, which is like a very famous market that's very popular with local and tourists in Tasmania. But, you know, international truffle sales are expected to reach US $6 billion within the next 10 to 20 years. And Australia is actually the 4th largest producer of truffles in the world, behind Spain, France, and Italy. So, you know, that just demonstrates, you know, that, you know, there is money to be made in agriculture. So the skills that he learnt, you know, within the agricultural science degree was able to, you know, help his family get their business up to the next level, because he was able to learn about marketing and packaging as well as the science, you know, behind agriculture as well. And that's just another picture too of another one of our graduates who's now the, you know, owner and founder of an apple cider business called Lost Pippin. And yes, they are, I guess, examples of domestic graduates, but there's still no reason why an international, you know, graduate couldn't look, you know, if they have that, you know, that backing behind them or eventual experience to open up, you know, their own businesses in this space, whether it's in Australia, you know, or back home. Because, yeah, niche products like this, you know, are only going to become more and more popular in many different countries as more countries become more well developed. And again, that's just a few more examples, you know, of the different things that you can get into if you even have obviously a degree in the agricultural business aspect. You know, even things like exporting or, you know, business consulting as well. Just to give you an idea about how diverse, you know, this industry can be. I was going to play some videos to you, but I think we probably don't have time, but perhaps I can send this PowerPoint on to Mike later on, because we've, you know, got some great videos of a Malaysian student called Meng, who did his Bachelor of Agricultural Science with us and now is doing a PhD. As well as a Sri Lankan student that's been doing our, you know, did our Master of Applied Science in Microbiology, and a Colombian student as well who did agricultural science at the master level. So I might just skip through those. I think the important thing to note about our agricultural degree at bachelor level is that you do have the opportunity to do a 2-week industry placement. So you do get those connections, you know, with industry before, you know, they even graduate. And so it is a compulsory unit for students in ag business, and elective unit for students in the ag science bachelor. And it's usually completed mid-semester, but, you know, our students go on to things like, you know, they'll have the placement at a winery, or even like the Bonarong Wildlife Park, you know, or, you know, agribusiness companies that are very Tasmania specific, or sometimes even nationwide agricultural businesses. And obviously they'll do that placement, then do a report on it, and also present a seminar to fellow students. But yeah, that's, I think, a very, you know, interesting aspect. And we also do have annual career forums where industry will actually come to our students and speak to them about employment. Even earlier this year, I had, you know, Simplot, which is a major, you know, food production company in Australia, contact me directly, asking how to actually, you know, get in touch with potential students that they might be able to employ in their graduate, you know, program at the end of the year. So we absolutely do get industry approaching us looking for graduates in this space. Now, very quickly, we do have a Master of Applied Science in Agriculture, which is a 2-year course as well. And that's, there'll be similarities to the bachelor program, but then there'll be different types of assessment. But then students can undertake either to do a research pathway, if they are wanting to use it as a pathway to PhD, or if they're wanting to look at the more professional pathway, they can work on like a series of case studies to solve different problems from an industry perspective, you know, from a lot of different areas, whether it's horticulture, you know, or dairy or water policy. But I won't go into too much detail because I'm just, again, aware of time. Again, you'll get this presentation, but yeah, lovely story from Sandra from Colombia, who's now actually doing a PhD with us, which is wonderful. She got a scholarship into our PhD. And again, going through beyond the classroom, there's a lot of different activities that students can do. I mentioned the career forum. There's different competitions where even students, you know, have competitions and make their own apple cider or beer. There's field trips across Tasmania to different businesses. We have a lot of guest speakers, and students even have opportunities to you know, go to overseas conferences and exchanges, and actually can apply for scholarships to help them with that. I know of one domestic student that has the opportunity, she had the opportunity to go to East Timor and do a placement in East Timor because she's very interested in working in the agricultural space, but in the actual non-for-profit global sector, and going to, you know, different, you know, communities in third world, you know, in developing countries that need that expertise. So doing international aid volunteering. So, and just very quickly, I just want to mention our microbiology program at master level, because it's quite unique in the fact that we are the only university in Australia that offers a named Master of Microbiology that focuses on all three key areas, including, as you can see on the screen, food microbiology, medical microbiology, and environmental microbiology. And it's a very applied master program, and students do have those opportunities to get outside of the classroom. I was very lucky last year. I got to actually work in our College of Sciences and Engineering, and actually got to spend a lot of time with the academics that teach into these programs. And I got to learn a lot more about it, and even speaking to some of the students studying that program, they were able to really sort of, you know, give me that strong, you know, understanding about why it's so, you know, unique. Because there's not many universities that actually offer this sort of, you know, area. Like Griffith University have a Master of Science in Clinical and Molecular Microbiology, but that only focuses on medical microbiology. So speaking to Tharaka, who we got a video on, he was saying that that was actually one of the reasons he chose our course, because he really wanted to diversify his experience in microbiology. So he came from Sri Lanka, was working, I think, for Pepsi or Coca-Cola and a couple of other different places. So he had that experience with the food microbiology, but he really wanted to learn a little bit more about the other areas as well. And we've got like one of the world's best microbiologists, Professor Tom Ross, actually teaching into this program. So he's highly regarded, you know, in this space. He would kill me if he heard me saying that, because he's quite a modest man. But very strong microbiology program, and that can lead to PhD. So yeah, and again, this just gives you a little bit of an idea about the career opportunities that you can find in microbiology. So it is actually quite surprising. I wasn't aware until last year when I worked in the college about how expansive, you know, your career could be in this space, whether it's, you know, food and beverage industries, or environmental or pharmaceutical, even water authorities. There is a lot of different jobs in this space, and I think the salary ranges, depending on what you choose to do, are quite, respectable. After gaining a few years of experience behind you as well. So that's obviously a very rushed overview of the different things that are taught within our Tasmanian Institute of Agriculture. As I mentioned before, it is one of the leading agricultural research institutes in Australia. Obviously the facilities, are strong in the fact that we do own a lot of properties across Tasmania that focus on a number of different things, where it's, dairy, or more, things around the, the vegetable growing. There's the different farms of different things. Very strong academics that are very passionate about what they do. I've listened to many academics talk about their respective disciplines over the last 7 years, and I have to say the academics in the ag science area are probably the ones that have actually excited me the most, because they have so much passion about this space. I always enjoy listening to the ag scientists talk around this space, and just the connections that they have with industry is amazing. We're always getting industry throw money at us to do research or offer scholarships for our students. It's really quite exciting, but again, I think there's just going to be more and more jobs in the agriculture sector, not just in Australia but globally going forward, and that people just need to I think be educated a little bit more about the opportunities available, and try and remove those myths that it is just about getting your hands dirty in a paddock, because you can do actually a lot more in that space. So that's really it. I guess in terms of updates today, it's really, I guess, doing my best to answer any questions that you might have. Let's see. Just looking at some of these questions here to see if there's any I can answer. Let's see. Somebody's asked about what it's like to be a student in Tasmania and to live in the area. One of the first things I'd probably say, being a Tasmanian myself, is we are a very friendly community. Tourism is one of the biggest industries in Tasmania. So we're very used to welcoming international, faces into the community. We're very relaxed, laid back kind of community as well. So, if I was to personally see, somebody looking a little bit lost on the corner of a street with a map in their hand, I'd always go up to them and ask them, if they needed any help. And I've seen people do that on many occasions. So we are a very, I guess, a friendly community, because Tasmania is much smaller than other states like Victoria and New South Wales. I guess people are a little bit less stressed and have a little bit more time on their hands, so they're much more approachable as well. And also, I think, very safe. So Tasmania is definitely one of the more, safer states in Australia, and I think that also comes down to the fact that less population, people are more relaxed. And I've travelled to probably nearly 40 different countries in my lifetime now, including places like Japan. And I'd have to say, I find Tasmania and Japan fairly similar in terms of, feeling safe, low crime rates, that type of thing. Students, I guess the one thing I'd say, if your student is a student that just likes to spend all day in a shopping centre, hanging out in a shopping mall, Tasmania might not be for them. Our culture is very much being active, whether that's playing sports, going for bushwalks or walks on the beach, going to the local farmers market, or doing things like movies or going to a cafe, spending time with friends and family. That's the type of thing that we do. It's not a destination where you're spending, 8 o'clock at night in a shopping centre. It's not really that way. I noticed the person that asked me that question is Vietnamese. We do have a lot of international student associations in Tasmania, and there is a lot of activities organised by those international student associations. Like say, for example, the Vietnamese Student Association is now one of the, the strongest in the university community. They've won even awards for the success they've been doing in terms of organising things and giving the Vietnamese community a real voice. And so there's a lot of different activities, on campus. Obviously with the COVID-19, that's made things a little bit more difficult. But when it wasn't, COVID-19, lots of different activities, on campus, whether it's barbecues or celebrating Multicultural Week. There was always different things to do. I think the thing is about Tasmania, there's always something to do, but people do have to be proactive in finding things to do. You just need to know where to look. But, there is always something happening. So I hope that helped a little bit. Cost of living is, by Australian standards, quite reasonable. Some people say it's a little bit cheaper than Victoria. And that's usually around, rent. Like, for example, in Launceston, it's much more affordable to rent in Launceston than, say, Hobart. But then Hobart would probably be, slightly cheaper than maybe Sydney or Melbourne, depending on where a student wants to live, what suburb, if they want to live on their own or if they're happy to live with 4 other people. We do accept the Duolingo test for Chinese applicants, so that is definitely something we're now recognising. In terms of a student that's completed their Masters in India, will they be eligible to apply for a Masters again? It's possible. We'd have to really assess it on a case-by-case basis. So I couldn't say yes or no. What I'd say is it's worth putting in an application and we can take a look and, provide, information based on that information you have provided. In terms of whether married applicants can apply, we do have some sort of strong guidelines around that, and I'd probably have to get back to you with more detailed information. But particularly, usually not for bachelor students. In some cases, we might allow it for master students. Definitely okay for PhD, but yeah, it sort of depends. So I'd probably have to make a note of that and give you full information and get back to yes on that with exact requirements, because we do have some things in place, due to GTE issues, in the past. Let's see. That's right. I've also been asked how much bank statement do international students need to show. Please also specify the time period. Let's see. I'd have to get back to you on that as well. I mean, generally, obviously, for students that are required to prove that information, they generally need to be able to prove that they can support themselves for the first 12 months of study. But how much bank statement they need to show, I'd have to double check with admissions in case that's changed.
And since University of Tasmania is a level 1 provider,
yes.
So as long as you can provide Duolingo and meet the university's language requirement, and I think Duolingo only open to Chinese applicants, right?
That's right. Yes, only to Chinese applicants. It's my understanding that the Department of Home Affairs haven't changed their requirements yet, so they're still only, accepting the, these standard tests like, IELTS. So us, accepting the Duolingo is really just for academic purposes. It's not going to be as helpful for visa purposes, unless it's changed in the last couple of weeks, and I'm not aware. But you are correct, we still are a level 1 institution. I don't usually say that out loud often, but yeah, that's a reality. In terms of part-time jobs, I guess the one thing I'm being very cautious about at the moment around casual jobs is because of COVID-19. I'll always provide realistic advice around this. As a result of COVID-19 across the globe, people have lost their jobs. Tasmania is no different to places like, Queensland, where we have had people lose their job due to COVID, particularly those in the tourism and hospitality, industries. But then we've also had some industries where they've needed more people, like in the health space. So at the moment, we do have local people, as well as internationals that did lose their job as a result of COVID-19. So I can't promise somebody's going to be able to come to Tasmania and get a casual job, but even before COVID-19, I would never do that, because that would be irresponsible, because the reality is it will always depend on an individual student as well, because sometimes I've met international students and they've complained about not getting a job, and then I've asked them, have you contacted a recruitment agency? Have you gone to the careers hub? Have you done this? Have you done that? And they're like, no. They haven't actually tried. They've just wanted to complain about it. So it very much does depend on having that positive attitude. The reality is, though, I guess, in terms of casual jobs, though, definitely agriculture is still a job, it's still an area where there will be jobs available. There was only an article in our newspaper, I think only a few days ago, where they were talking about the fact that, some people in the ag sector are very worried about not being able to find people, to do the different ag jobs for them, like fruit picking, for example, because they've relied really heavily on international students and backpackers as well to do this type of work, because there is some type of work where local people don't always like to do that type of work, whereas backpackers and international students have no problems with it. So they are a little bit worried about some skills shortages with some of these seasonal work in the agricultural sector. So I'm very confident that there is going to be opportunities for casual work in the ag space at different times throughout the year. In Tasmania, because we have no active cases at the moment of COVID, and we haven't had any new cases, I think now in over 40 days. So we're doing really well in that space. So we are opening up a lot more businesses again in terms of, restaurants and hotels. And that's obviously a really good sign. So I'm hoping as a result of slowly opening up businesses, that more, uni students will get their jobs back. But yeah, obviously you have to be cautious in this space, because usually for our international students, it would be jobs in tourism and hospitality and the agricultural space, as well as these service, jobs working in, in retail, for example. Sometimes our international students also do get jobs in the aged care sector as well, depending on their background. So, and even things like cleaning. So I know a lot of international students that have got good jobs, good hourly pay, cleaning as well. So they're the type of jobs, I guess, that they would be looking for as well. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an understanding in that space. Obviously in the past where we've also tried to, give, paid opportunities to, international students as well. Even for myself at different times, I've paid casual students to do, recruitment activities for me, got them to, go speak, at different events about their experiences as a student, or even, help follow up, applicants that might have the same first language as them. So where we can, we do try and hire international students, not just during their studies, but even after they graduate. I have, in my own team, my direct team, we have 4 of our staff members are actually former international students. And even within our corporate internship programs, I've had a number of international students that have reported to me when they were doing their corporate internships, and I've gone on to be their referee, and they've actually gone on to actually get jobs in Tasmania. So actually, oddly enough, just this morning, I got back from a few days leave, and one of my Chinese students, Alex, who did an internship through me, she just sent me an email just saying, hey, how are you going? I miss you. Hope we can catch up for coffee soon. And just to let me know that she was really enjoying her job at IOOF in Hobart, in the accounts area that she got after I was a referee for her. So we really do try and help our students, where we can, in finding opportunities for them. So does anyone have any other questions?
I think just one more final question is, if students taken Duolingo and the first offer like to next February or July intake, will that test score still valid?
Yeah, no, that test score should still be valid, absolutely. The one thing I should also point out is that we do have another password test that could be done, that's arranged through a provider we have at UTAS, that would not cost, that shouldn't actually cost a student any money, but they would need to actually sit that test probably under a supervised, format potentially. So again, Mike, I think I might make a note to send you more information about that password test, because as a result of COVID, they actually made some positive changes to that test. And so part of that test is actually marked by the provider, and then another part of it, would be undertaken, by our own English Language Centre staff. So I'll send you more information on that so people are aware that there's another option as well as Duolingo.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And that password test is open for any nationalities, right?
That's right, yes.
Yeah, that would be good. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Tamara, for your wonderful presentation today. And thanks for all the participants who joined today's online training. And yeah, as I typed in the chat box, if you have any more questions, you're welcome to send me an email. And yeah, and also we will send out as today's training recording and PowerPoint, as well as a brochure and relevant website links to all of the participants today. Yeah, okay. I think, yeah, Tamara.
I was about to say to Mike, just to thank you very much to Mike and Wayne at the team at Yes Education for organising today's session. We really do appreciate your support and obviously the support of your network that's taken the time to listen to me today. I know it's a real trying time for the sector, but we really do appreciate that support. And I hope you have enjoyed today's session. And everything was, quite clear. It's a bit weird sort of, talking virtually and not seeing people's, facial reactions. But yeah, thank you again.
Okay, thanks, Tamara. I will end the meeting now. Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.